Hey, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I was just drinking my thermos of wine across the room. I was listening to this podcast the other night that is about to come out, and these two guys watched statistically the top 500 movies ever made according to the internet up until 2019, and your voice sounded very familiar. Are you one of the co-hosts?
Yes, I am one of the co-hosts, and your voice sounds weirdly familiar. I was trying to place it.
I'm the other co-host of the show. I'm Jake McGruder.
Did you know that the show is now being sponsored by the Arrow?
The Arrow Network?
The Arrow Network.
What are the chances that we would run into each other at this fancy restaurant?
I'm drinking wine. This is the first time I've ever drank wine before.
Me too, out of a thermos.
Yes, the thermos. I saw it over there. That keeps it. I'm sure it keeps it so cold or room temperature or whatever you're trying to do.
It's warm, actually. But I actually have to go, but I'll catch you on, I guess, when we record the show.
Yeah, we'll be talking about movies. Catch it at 8, 9 Central.
Yeah, okay. I'll talk to you later. Bye.
The Top 500 Podcasts with Jonathan and Jake, brought to you by the Arrow Podcast Network.
Many people think that the best way to escape war...
This is The Playback from Arrow Podcast Network and Red Hawk Radio Theater.
All right, everybody, welcome back to The Playback. We are here again today. I am Clayton Hester. We've got Satyajit Sarkar, and we've got Margot MacArthur with us. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing pretty good, Clayton.
Good. Yeah. How about you, Sati?
I'm going to change my answer up from last week. I'm doing very nicely.
Okay, good. That's good. You know, that's just as well as good. That's synonymous with good, so that's good. Yeah.
Exactly. But I didn't want to say I'm doing
up
very
too
good.
much. Wouldn't want anything too different.
Exactly. You can't throw the listeners off with how you're doing.
Yeah. One original answer, you could say something along the lines of, dealing with, radioactive animals that have mutated and gotten loose. So that's something, just things to spice it up.
Or just say, I'm doing terrible, Clayton.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This is the worst day of my life. Why did you drag me here? I'm kidding.
If you're gonna expect honesty, then you don't want that.
You don't have to be honesty. You don't have to be honest. It's not that much of a virtue for our sakes, because that just slows things down.
It just kills the vibe.
Yeah.
It kills the vibe utterly.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's start the podcast.
Speaking of
shall
slowing
we?
things down, it's like
I'm still okay. Let's just start the podcast.
Anyway, yeah. So today we are going to actually get into some of the listens that we've been doing. As we mentioned last podcast, we've gotten a lot of feedback. We've gotten a lot of support for what we're doing. In people that have reached out and asked us. We'll take a listen to their shows. We're gonna try to see what we can do in terms of that. But we've also just been listening to things based on our diverse interests, because of the show's format is kind of a roundup of what lately has been going on. And so I'll start things off a little bit to name a few shows that I've been interested in. We talked last time, and I remarked at length about the interesting crossover between different genres and the different experiments that you can do. One of the shows I listen to or have listened to is Continuum Force, which is basically government project of time travel. It bills itself as kind of a fusion of Stargate and Doctor Who, which is kind of a nice thing, because you could see that kind of coming together. Like Doctor Who's got some of the ancient aliens, I think, and Stargate's all about that, and it's like, all the interaction and stuff, and it's like time travel and the whole 9 yards there. So it's interesting. It's certainly interesting. You learn a few things about the past as well, and so it becomes an interesting kind of thought experiment, and we can see the mysteries starting to slowly unravel. So that's one of those. I finished Echo Protocol, which is a mini series, and Sati and I had been talking before, I think the last one or so, about our interest. Well, I mean, mainly in the West Wing. For you, you've watched it, and I'm interested in starting it. And at broader sense, we can talk about the interest in the political thriller genre, which was what this was. Yeah, you know, it's
That
like
just sounds like an oxymoron.
political thriller. It's like you walk on the floor of the Congress. It's like you aren't going to be thrilled. But
No.
sorry.
You very rarely are.
And also, someone's been murdered. Ooh.
That does happen
Oh, wait,
in these shows.
bill's
I
gonna
mean,
pass.
What
Wait,
you
they're
say is
actually
that
doing their
does happen
job.
sometimes in the Oval Office.
no, I didn't say that. No, I mean like designated survivor. I won't say who, but people like it's just surprising the rate at which different people get killed in the sense that it is just becomes one of your political
I don't know. It's just like
TV
House
dramas.
of Cards. House
Yeah.
of Cards, Veep. Veep's being satirical, but still.
Do people get killed in Veep?
No, they don't.
Oh, okay, good.
But it's just I'm talking about political.
Yeah,
not
political.
I'm talking about political shows. in
Political
general.
shows, yeah.
Yeah.
I've also heard it called a government procedural, which is actually a pretty good term, I think. I started Veep, but I thought it was boring. Anyway,
Is politics boring to you?
well, clearly not, as I watched Designated Survivor.
Yes.
See, now that's not politics.
Well, that's
I
a
don't
political
count that as politics.
thriller.
It's
but-
it's
So, Echo Protocol is a political thriller, and it becomes analogous to the current moment in that it has a president in office who is. I will say it's not a perfect analogy, considering nobody wants to do fan fiction of the news
Au
industry.
contraire. You'd be surprised.
It's fan fiction of the news industry, wherein that ripped from the headlines in terms of but no, it has a calculating and portrayed as villainous president, and who he gets to the point where he starts to regulate the press, which I mean has been done. But ultimately, that's definitely not a good thing. So it is definitely a great affront. And, I will say as far as the history books, there were some things with FDR, but we won't go into that. Points being, as far as that, this is a great threat to our democracy if you start tampering with the press. And so ultimately, other things happened as well. Starts clamping down. Things get wild. Protests erupt. So the Echo Protocol in the name is the idea that these retired presidents are going to act as a check on the current president, and so they basically kind of form a conspiracy among themselves. And there is actually a rooted kind of existence of the political thriller genre in these audio dramas because of the fact that you have shows like another one called Terms. And I started the first episode of that. It reminded me a lot of Echo Protocol. And so there are different shows that have arisen along those lines.
Do you think?
Yeah.
Do you think it's because? How recent are these shows? First of all.
Oh, just within the last couple of years. Oh yeah, they're definitely a response to the current moment.
Okay, that's what I was gonna.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. It's like you could just, if
you could sense it.
Oh yeah. Sense it in the way that if you dropped a sledgehammer on your toe, you would sense that as well.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
But yeah, I mean, in general, that's one of the interesting things about art. It's like a lot of things may not be as subtle in the time that they come out and the time that they arise, but you have to wonder whether they will be still associated with the thing that inspired them down the line. You get a lot of timely media these days. It's like this is well, we know what this is about. This is a thing, and maybe it's less disconnectable for something like back in the day a political cartoon, things like that. But
yeah,
generally those things can basically be separated, and it's like, oh, I didn't know this was about this or those different things. But it's one of those interesting things that will be kind of the the subject of inquiry for like internet historians and such.
If I can add,
Sure.
With political shows, I think The West Wing kind of barged in and broke open the floodgates for shows like these to come out, because I don't think a show like Designated Survivor or Echo Protocol on audio formats would have happened if West Wing would not have happened.
Right.
With the thing with West Wing, it's not. I see it as a dramedy with a lot of high stakes situations being thrown. I mean, obviously, because it's focusing on the executive branch, there's going to be high stakes situations involved. But it kind of introduces the audience to a whole sect of people that were shrouded in this kind of mystery to an extent with the way that they are, and it kind of sheds a light on their professional lives, on the trials and tribulations of their personal lives. Like it's first episode, spoiler alert, Leo McGarry's wife leaves him. He's a chief of staff, because he is devoted for the rest of the term to the president. He cannot take time away for his own family. So it's just one of those, seeing the stakes involved in a job as important as chief of staff, or in any kind of job at the White House. You see the respect, and you see the magnitude of working at a place like that somehow has been diluted in the past 4 years. So yeah, it's a good thing to see all these people putting their voices forward in a political manner, and putting their own takes on political stories.
Right. And there was a very short-lived show called First Monday, which was about the Supreme Court, actually.
Ooh.
And they had Joe Montana, I think that's his name, Mantegna. Yeah. And it also had James Garner, and so
Wow.
which is great, honestly. But I think I don't think people were all that interested in the Supreme Court. But I would watch the heck out of that show, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that's interesting. Now we're talking interesting stuff here. And so these things, people, it really is the age of like just make it yourself, in terms of when your idea gets shut down or something like that. I mean, sometimes that isn't really as doable always with a TV show, as long as it's a full-fledged like TV project. But things can live in different ways via the audio drama and things like that. And so, that's one of the interesting aspects of it as well. I have listened to a bit of some of the more popular shows. That Wolf 359 is one of a popular sci-fi series that is centered on kind of a space expedition. The network called Dust is centered on doing sci-fi, speculative fiction stuff as well, but it also has done audio dramas. It also delves into the realm of video, but it's gotten started with a show called Chrysalis, which I believe is on my up next list of things to listen to and inspect more a little bit. But I think I've talked a bit enough about the shows I've been listening to. How about you, Sati? Anything new in terms of what you've been hearing?
Yeah. So, being who I am, I reach out to shows that are plays more so than full-fledged out audio productions. From last time around, listeners might remember that I was listening to Mystery Fireside Theater, and what I said was that they're doing plays together on a stage and reading it out to an audience, and there's live music. And I found something very similar to that actually with the Parsnip Ship. It's a collaboration. I think out in.
I'm thinking it's New York. I think that was what the description I had read said.
Yeah. Also, I found. I'm going to give a shout out to Eric Henry Emma. Thank you for suggesting. Thank you for suggesting the Parsnip Ship as a audio drama company to listen to. So the show that I listened to from them was called The Aventines, and it's basically a play about about two guys who walk into a bar and they buy it, and they are quote unquote artists, and they want to fly their flag of running against the grain and doing crazy things for in the name of art. And one of the things that stood out to me was they were like, let's run this bar all the way down to the ground. Let's get it up to its highest point, and then let's just leave the bar when it's at its lowest. So they weren't necessarily looking for just success, but they were also looking for the failure to end their I guess romance with the bar in ways. And it's a playwright named Teague Mitchell, and it's a comedy, and it's very pretentious. It's a good way of putting it, because there's a lot of Latin put in there. There's a lot of allusions to other highbrow sort of things.
This somewhat sounds like my kind of show.
Yeah, it's a good play. It's a good play.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna spoil the ending, but there's this character named the unnamed rock star, damned rock star, who's dead, and she carries an empty guitar case. It's like very I don't know if you've heard of this show, but it's kind of like Picasso at the Lapina Gil, but without Picasso, without Albert Einstein, and without Elvis, and you just plug in no name artists that are trying to create their sort of vision of utopia with this bar. And it's a funny show just to hear them go through the whole upside and downside of running the bar, and their aspirations for art, and the aspirations for their art movement. So they call themselves the Aventines or Aventines, and the running joke is that they're kind of like the Bohemians, but they're not, because the Bohemians are dead and they aren't. So yeah, it's a nice little play.
Interesting.
And just to move on from the plot, it's the way that they executed the show is there's a person reading stage directions and there are players. So it's just a play on audio with no music or minimal music, and at the end of the show they go into a short discussion of how the show came to be and how they were trying to put on the show for the past 8 months, and finally they get to put the show on. And they close it off with a beautiful song by Anneke Reich, if I pronounce that correctly. It's Annekereich.
Hmm.
Yeah.
No, that's interesting. You mentioned that, and I know we were talking about this before the recordings, but you had mentioned, the live music factor, and something I've also noticed with like Sage and Savant is one that I listen to, that they will do like a musical interlude. Well, they'll just have like a featured artist and things like that, which is a really interesting thing. And I do wonder. I imagine maybe it plays in from like the heritage of the radio theater, in that you would have these large orchestras for the purpose of radio broadcast live music. So I wonder if it plays from that in some way, but I'm not sure. It's interesting regardless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really is. And also the way that they just come together at a venue and record it in front of a live audience is another aspect of I guess radio production back in the day, because they would not often, it would always be in a studio, but sometimes special occasions they would do live broadcasts of sorts, and not live broadcasts, that would be all the time, but in front of audiences is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Margot, any thoughts on anything? I know that you mentioned that you didn't have as much that you wanted to talk about in terms of shows and stuff, but
No, I was just here to give my my reviews. But I do like the idea of a play that is completely audio. There was a recent Monty Python special on Netflix that was basically that format. And I cannot remember what it's called. I think The Life of Dick, I think. Something like that. It stars hold on, what's Russell Brand?
Okay.
And it has Tim Curry.
And this is new.
It's new on Netflix. I think it was originally aired in 2012, 2013.
Oh, okay.
Because it had Tim Curry pre-stroke.
Oh, okay.
So he was fun.
Yeah.
It's really funny though, because each of the characters play different characters.
Yeah.
Other than Russell Brand, who plays the role of Dick, and it's just a lot of jokes of that caliber. And then they feature a song, obviously, that's ridiculous. But it's that same format, and it just reminds me of the 30s and the 40s of lots of Foley art and just
Yeah, no, I get you. No, that's
I'm
interesting.
trying to think of other words to describe it.
No, I like that idea. That's interesting. Yeah, absolutely.
If anyone, you guys who haven't heard of it, or anyone else listening, check it out. It's a Monty Python something Dick.
I looked it up on Netflix, and I can't find it.
Hold on.
Okay. Yeah, no, I know Life of Brian, but I don't know.
See, I know Life of Brian.
I haven't seen Life of Brian, but, I just know Blessed are the Cheesemakers.
It was quite
Dick?
Controversial.
The show is called What About Dick?
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, all right. Okay, hey, well, I think that's pretty much the show for today, and hopefully we've given you some good something to work with in terms of people that are just now exploring audio dramas that want to learn more, and hopefully we've been able to give some shout outs to people that are listening, that help to nurture the audio drama community, help to reinforce it. Being in the creative arts can be sometimes a thankless job, but in terms of getting your stuff out there and getting your stuff noticed and represented, that's just a great feeling. And so, yeah, we wanted to appreciate the work that everybody does and the interesting ideas that people are playing with. So, all right. So for today's episode, I'm going to sign off for Margot, sign off for Sati, Clayton Hester saying, listen in and keep your ear to the ground and keep those earbuds in. Until next time. Bye, everybody. Keep your head in the ground like an ostrich. Stick your head in the sand.